What's up, everybody? This is Ryan Thomas from the Thomas Take Sports Podcast, back again for part 2 of today's show. Part 1, I answered the questions from Brandon Reed of MyFantasySportsTalk.com, and now, on part 2, I am answering the questions from Orlando Torres, my main man, the MMA guy for My Fantasy Sports Talk. Me and Orlando, two peas in a pod in terms of MMA coverage on MFST, the two guys that really enjoy covering the sport. And Orlando has been a big supporter of the show, loves to tune in and talk MMA with me. Orlando's questions are always entertaining. They're always funny in their own way. So I wanted to answer his question for everybody today on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. And it was about a topic that I truly wanted to talk about on its own, and I'm going to do so. So here we go. His first question was, what are your thoughts on the UFC signing of Gokhan Saki, and what would be the perfect debut opponent for him in the light heavyweight division? So Gokhan Saki is a 0-1 MMA fighter, regarded as one of the best kickboxers that the sport of kickboxing has ever seen. And immediately when I had heard the news that Gokhan Saki was signing with the UFC, I kind of scratched my head a little bit. Mainly because the second leading promotion in the sport of MMA, Bellator MMA, is in conjunction, it has its own kickboxing brand, Bellator Kickboxing. So Bellator is not just an MMA organization, Bellator is a kickboxing organization. They have two separate brands built into one. Sometimes they have the octagon along with the kickboxing ring in the same arena, which that would be a pretty cool event to go to. Bellator Dynamite is what they call it. So when I heard the news that Saki was signing with the UFC, I thought this was more of a signing that would fit for Bellator. And I thought that was where Saki would go, and he expressed his interest in being in one of the top two MMA organizations. So the UFC is really taking a interesting chance with this signing, because he's a light heavyweight, and right now in the UFC light heavyweight division, Daniel Cormier is the champion. He's fighting John Jones on July 29th at UFC 214. And Alexander Gustafsson, in his own right, just put on a fantastic performance versus Glover Teixeira, really displayed his newfound boxing skills in the octagon versus Glover. So outside of those three guys, though, the division is not in good hands. We've seen guys like Phil Davis leave for Bellator. We saw a guy recently in the UFC's top 5 that left for Bellator, and that was Ryan Bader. So the UFC light heavyweight division has fallen on some tough times in terms of the depth that the division has, and I think that this is a signing to add some intrigue for the UFC's light heavyweight division. And I'm excited to see who he gets matched up with in terms of like his strength of opponent. But I think that the perfect debut opponent for him would be somebody that is known as a kickboxer. And when I look at the UFC's rankings in terms of what would be an intriguing name, there's a few that do jump out at me. But I feel like this is a guy that will definitely be interesting to see. And my phone is getting blown up. I'm actually getting trade offers. I'm not taking them. So let's see here. Let's go to the rankings. Let's go to the divisions. The UFC top 10, as I look this up, obviously Daniel Cormier, the champ, Alexander Gustafsson, Glover Teixeira, Jimmy Manuwa, Mauricio Shogun Hua. Maybe a guy like Patrick Cummins, maybe a guy like Jean Vellante, maybe the winner of that fight. As I said, that I realize that Cummins and Vellante will fight each other very soon. Tyson Pedro is a 6-0 light heavyweight, so Jan Blachowicz just came off a loss to Patrick Cummins. He's ranked 14th. I mean, I don't anticipate them giving him a top 15 opponent, but they might, just to try to push Gokhan Saki. So that's my take on Gokhan Saki heading to the UFC. He also asked me, here's a question for your show, man. So I'm not a big baseball guy, obviously, but I did catch the brawl between Hunter Strickland and Bryce Harper, and I thought it was weak. And Harper's helmet throw didn't help his case. But let's say these two guys have, 3 months to prep and train before stepping into the octagon against one another. Who wins? I'm going with Strickland on this one, but I want to see what you think. So let's start off with the beginning. And with respect to Orlando, I will answer his question. But let's start off from the beginning. So for those of you that don't know, for those of you that have been living under a rock the last few days, Bryce Harper got hit by a pitch on the hip by San Francisco Giants pitcher Hunter Strickland. And these two have a history dating back a year or so ago, where Strickland was taken deep 2 times by Bryce Harper in his last two appearances against Bryce Harper. So typically when that happens, the role of a pitcher inside a Major League Baseball game is to control the pulse of the game. They're the heartbeat of the game. All eyes are on the pitcher on every single pitch. That's what makes baseball and the pitcher position so interesting. The pitcher dictates the game. So when a pitcher is kind of shown up by a superior name in the game, Hunter Strickland is not one of the best relievers in baseball. Bryce Harper is one of the best players in baseball. So when Bryce Harper took Hunter Strickland deep, not once but twice, Hunter Strickland, in my mind, knew, in his mind, in Hunter's mind, that he was going to make him pay for it. And that is part of the game. It's been a part of the game since Abner Doubleday invented the game of baseball hundreds of years ago. So Hunter Strickland did not shock me. He did not do the wrong thing by deciding to hit Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper did not do the wrong thing by retaliating. This act of a pitcher hitting a batter is a part of the game of baseball. Like it or not, it should never go away, and it's a part of the game. Bryce Harper took that hit, charged the mound, threw his helmet. It was a terrible throw. Usually when you throw a baseball helmet, I mean, it's a pretty heavy helmet, so it wasn't really surprising when the helmet kind of went the other way. You'd almost have to throw it with 2 hands in order for it to get to where you need it to go, or to throw it like a football. But Bryce Harper was running as he threw it, and it was just a bad throw. So Strickland is a massive man, and if you watch the footage, it took about 6 to 7 guys to take him off the mound. And when a guy is that big, Bryce Harper's a big boy as well. He's 6'3", 230, but Hunter Strickland looked like he's Shaq size. In terms of the guys that were trying to take him off the mound, he could not be stopped. It literally took about 7 guys to take him basically off the mound and out of the game. So to your question, Orlando, I definitely envision Hunter Strickland having a very easy time in a fight with Bryce Harper. He punched him twice in that scrum, in that little exchange, and I definitely think that he would win that fight easy. Bryce Harper, if they were to start training for each other, I think Hunter Strickland would outweigh him by maybe 50, 60 pounds. So I'm assuming that Hunter Strickland would take that fight. But very good questions by Orlando Torres once again on the Thomas Take Sports podcast. And I really enjoy being a part of that crew with Dan Schalk, Orlando Torres, and Brandon Reed. I have a good time joining those guys, talking sports topics with those guys. And I will look to continue to do so tomorrow night on My Fantasy Sports Talk, which is on YouTube.com. You can subscribe to My Fantasy Sports Talk on YouTube. You can also subscribe to the Thomas Take Sports Podcast on YouTube. So thank you guys for tuning in tonight to tonight's show. In closing, I wanted to talk about a couple things in the wide world of the world. I didn't plan on it. I didn't plan on talking about this whole Kathy Griffin ordeal, and I'm not really going to talk so much about Kathy Griffin, or Griffith, or whatever the hell her name is. I don't even know what her name is, to be honest. I want to talk about Hollywood and how Hollywood actors, actresses try to influence the average American's opinion. I think that this is really getting overboard between Kathy Griffin with what she did, with Tom Cruise, what he did with the Matt Lauer interview about 10, 12 years ago. I think it's getting really out of hand, really ridiculous. I'm not saying that these actors and actresses should not have a platform to speak on, but when they do things like this, it definitely takes the flair of it away when you see people that are actually buying into this opinion. And I saw so many people defend Kathy Griffin this week, today, and last night, and I was just blown away. I mean, whether or not you are a Trump supporter, and those that know me know that I am, it definitely sets the case that people think that I'm saying this stuff just to stick up for Trump. I'm not. What I'm saying is that celebrities should not really be someone to take political advice from, because they are not everyday people. And for those of you that say Donald Trump was a celebrity, Donald Trump was a celebrity for his life's work. He was not an actor. He was not an actress. He was a celebrity based on his persona as a businessman. The success that he had as a businessman at the time in the 70s and 80s and 90s made him a celebrity. And obviously his reality show, that part was what made him a celebrity. But even in the face of his reality show, that was a business reality show. So people to say that a celebrity is the president, I think that's false. He was a famous businessman. Businessmen that are successful are quote-unquote celebrities, I guess, but they're not celebrities. A celebrity to me is an actor, an actress, a director, someone that is in fame through film,